All right. Let's do the normal spiel. Hey, what's up, America? Welcome to Goodnight America. I'm American sweetheart Eric Ryan. Normally on the show, what we do is we talk to the very best nonfiction authors of our generation. But today, Friday is a little different. We're going to talk about the news. And the reason we're going to talk about the news is because Alex Fink is here. Here's what you want to do when you host a podcast. Butcher the guest's name. Alex Fink is here. He's the CEO and founder of The Other Web. And what does The Other Web do one more time for the listeners?
Clean up the news.
Clean up the goddamn news. Now, I want to tell you, so you're going to be the Friday guest. And I want to tell you, I can spot talent. You know why I know I can spot talent? Because you, my friend, are involved in my very first controversy.
Really?
Yes.
I never do anything controversial. Come on.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I didn't think we were either. Well, I kind of knew we were. This is what happened. I had somebody book a spot to come on the show. Then they did their due diligence and watched an episode. They happened to watch our episode of all the episodes they could watch. And he took great umbrage with some things that we were saying. Would you like to guess what the thing we said that offended him was?
I don't know. There were a few things that were cancel worthy, but which one?
It's the single most pressing issue of our time. All right. It's not war. It's not famine. It's not disease. It's not the fact that there's starving children in the United States or that 22 veterans kill themselves a day. It was trans athletes, which affects tens of people globally. But it's this thing that you can't have any dissenting opinion. And what's fucking crazy to me is that I'm left. I'm very, very left. Ideologically, I'm progressive. And if you break rank at all, the left eats you alive. And this is what I hate about my side. Al Franken could have been fucking president, but he took one funny picture and we kicked him out of the goddamn Senate. Whereas the right, fucking whatever that sewer troll Marjorie Taylor Greene says or does, they form a circle of protection around her. Lauren Boebert could whack off whoever she wants in public theaters. They'll defend that. Matt Gaetz has inappropriate sexual relationships with children, and they're like, well, the kid shouldn't have been so hot. Now, I'm not saying that
well, they did drop him, though.
Okay, that's their weird line in the sand. Thank God they have one. But what I'm saying is you don't do what they're doing in practice, but in theory, kind of like, come on, man. If you listen to me, how I feel about things. But some shit, like, to me, it's not an issue of sexuality or anything. It's an issue of fairness. I just don't think it's fair. And I think you feel the same way.
Yeah, and it also goes beyond that. I think I have a lot of friends who are left-wing, but on this particular issue, they don't understand why that's a left-wing position, right? It doesn't quite make sense why being left-wing, which typically means that you have empathy, you are for workers' rights, you want some sort of equality, right? You want people to earn a living wage and have a good life. How does that relate to having a man beat up a woman in the Olympics? I'm not quite sure why that is on the same side of the ledger. It just ended up there.
I know. And what's fucked up is it's not as if this is like, this isn't a thing we deal with all the time. There's a clear precedent being set. My son is 8 and he plays soccer. This is when they start to separate the boys and the girls because the boys have a clear physiological advantage. So if it happens all the goddamn time in many, many different places and we understand it, why at some point do we short circuit and go, this makes all the sense in the world? It doesn't.
And besides, it's not like you can't have a third league, right? We don't want to preclude people from participating in sports, right? If this division doesn't fit and this division doesn't fit, let's make a new one, right? So everybody wants to accommodate everybody, especially in school and in college. I think the complaint from 95% of the population is that we kind of know this particular thing is bad. You don't put somebody who was born male and somebody who was born female in the boxing ring together. Maybe they can compete in long distance swimming. I think women are actually better than men at this one, right? Or in some other sport. I saw in pool, we discussed that as well, right? That's probably reasonable, at least to some extent. But it doesn't work in boxing, or at least the results could be kind of dangerous.
Yeah, well, I read, I did a little research and I read the article about the two. So the thing that we talked about that I'm sure got us in trouble was that the finals of the English Billiards League female championship was two biological males playing against each other. So I went and I read the article, and female pool players say that male pool players play pool differently. They hit the ball harder. They play the rails different. They're longer because of their limbs. It's just they're even in a game, because I think we could say pool's not a sport. It's a game. Yeah. In a physical game, there are physiological differences. It doesn't have to do with punching in the face or running faster, but there's just an advantage to the way you're hitting the fucking balls. So if that's the case, have your own league.
Okay.
It's right.
I think it's time for us to get canceled more. Here's a game, or which I consider a sport, but maybe some people wouldn't, that has no physical elements in it whatsoever. Chess. Right? Have you looked at the differences between males and females in chess? They're enormous. Right?
Nope.
Right? The huge differences, right? There were basically two women that could compete somewhat on par with men in history. Right? Judith Polgar, she ended up number 4 among men at some point. But for the most part, the world champion among women would be ranked somewhere outside of the top 200 among men. Why? Nobody knows for sure. Maybe when we map the genome and we test everything, then we'll figure out what the differences are. But there are clearly differences. And if you know for a fact that there are differences, it makes sense to separate it into 2 separate leagues, which chess does pretty successfully, right? In some sports where there is no difference, then you don't separate. Again, long distance swimming, I don't think that there is a separate event for men versus women. Typically, they're together because women actually have a higher pain tolerance. They can withstand the ocean for longer.
Birth. So, here's another thing that bothers me about this issue is that the oligarchy loves it. When the peasants are infighting about dumb shit, they can't get enough of it. And this is bulletin board material for the right. They get so fucking worked up and then they go and vote. I was talking to my brothers this morning about this, and they said, I think this shit lost us the election. You can almost point to this and going, this is what kills me too. The left had the culture war won. If you look at the 90s and the early 2000s, that was leftist propaganda ideology out there, offensive, brown, black, Latino. Like, we had the culture war won. And then we self-immolated with this nothing's funny anymore and everyone's offended by everything. That wasn't right-wing ideology. They didn't come in and force us to set ourselves on fire. So it's just really odd strategically across the board, Yeah.
Well, I think Douglas Murray had this analogy of like a train that was going from very, very, very far out. And as it's pulling into its destination, just accelerated and went through the people and through all the barricades and kept going as fast as it could, right? Like you said, in the 90s, it was already getting kind of close. There were a few more issues that need to be resolved to really get equality and really get proper equal rights to everyone. And then somehow, I guess all the grievance groups thought that they are going to be out of a job. And so they had to invent new grievances. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But it does seem like the goalpost shifted a lot. And if you look at the platforms of both parties from the 90s, like read 1994 and 1996, you will see that the Republican platform is mostly unchanged. There's a few Trump-specific things that changed, right? But for the most part, it's basically the same. The Democratic one changed a lot. It's like in the 90s, it's what you would expect the left to want, right? And then today it's, wait, why is this a political issue? Wait, why is this here? I don't get it. What does this have to do with the left? So there's, let's say, some soul searching that the Democratic Party probably has to do about how it goes back to being a Democratic Party.
I agree. And issues like this need soul searching. So this guy, and I'm not going to say his name or anything, I'm going to protect the innocent, but dude, we're on the same team. Can't we talk about our one difference? Isn't that healthier than you just shunning me? I don't have a totally unreasonable position. If you read that article about the two billiards players, the female billiards players are saying, we don't like this. It's a disadvantage. Like, I'm sure they're not like, this is in England. They're probably not radical Trumpists or anything. They're just saying, this is my sport of choice. I prefer not to play biological men. That's a reasonable fucking position. And I'm not allowed, now I can't talk to my own side. I'm ostracized. That's fucking crazy.
Well, welcome to today's America. But again, I'm not even part of either one of these positions. I guess my position on both parties is I want to have 2 good parties, one good party on the right and one good party on the left. And I want each of those to represent the best version of the right-wing argument and the best version of the left-wing argument. And hopefully the truth will kind of be a synthesis of their initial thesis. But yeah, it becomes kind of odd when these positions morph into weird infighting that has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah, I said to my brothers too, it's like I'm not black enough. That's the argument. Sometimes when there's infighting in the black community, like Obama wasn't black enough. I'm like, what? Oh, Jesus Christ, man. When do we stop fighting? When is enough, dude? Like this guy, I'm on your team, man. Let's just come on. What's the solidarity? The right has so much solidarity. It's crazy.
Well, to be fair, no, the right has also a lot of infighting, and right now specifically, you have basically the fight between MAGA and the traditional neoconservative right, sort of the Reagan coalition, and they disagree on a lot of things, and a lot of the old right has become Democrat now just because they don't want to be MAGA. So you still have infighting, and it just seems like the infighting isn't on these issues typically.
Yeah.
Like,
it's odd because 4 months ago the right were constitutionalists and now they're just outright fascists. Like, what happened? I thought it was the rule of the land and the law and order. I get it. Oh, we fucking love the Constitution. Founding fathers, yes. And they're like, fuck that shit.
Weird. Well, look, it was always a coalition of at least 3 or 4 groups, right? And it seems like the group that is winning now actually holds the positions that the right in the US used to have before Reagan, right? They rolled it back, which is what conservatives do, right? Roll it back at least 50 years onto a time before we had this mass consensus on the right that free trade is always better. Controlling the world and being involved in everything will ensure that the world is safe for free trade. So that is always better, right? Now we're kind of rolling back to, wait. Why don't we just control our own hemisphere, right? Why don't we use our power for our own good, right? Which is a traditional position that existed on the right in the US. It has been not so popular over the past 50 years. Now it's back.
This is partly why I don't want to talk about the high level shit on I'd rather talk about individual news stories, because trying to pin any ideology down at this point is fucking impossible. You can't make any sweeping generalizations because everything's water. I mean, the water is so muddy at this point. It just can't make sense of it. So I'd much rather talk about YouTubers doing dumb shit.
Well, there's enough of that.
Yeah. So all right. So story number 1 from the other web. U.S. YouTuber still in jail after trying to visit remote tribe on Forbidden Island where another American was killed. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this kid's name. He's going to appear in court on April 29th. The 24-year-old is suspected of violating Indian laws that carry a possible sentence of up to 5 years in prison. Visitors are banned from traveling within 3 miles of North Sentinel Island, whose population has been isolated from the rest of the world for thousands of years. The inhabitants use spears and bows and arrows to hunt animals that roam the small, heavily forested island. Not only do they hunt animals, but they killed a guy, a missionary, in 2018. And in 2006, 2 fishermen accidentally docked on the island and they killed them too, which we talked last week about how murder is only kind of legal in war. Like, why is it okay? I love that these people aren't prosecuted. They're just like, listen, man, anybody shows up on your island, you can stick a stick in their face. Like, it's fine.
But you have to first of all understand this is the normal state of things, right? When we were all tribes, basically, if you meet somebody from a different tribe, unless you can figure out how you are related, and you probably have a very short time window to do that, then you're fighting to the death. That's the normal state of things before civilization.
And I think this is a rational position that they look at these people and go, listen, this is the law of the land. This is what you do. My other takeaway from this, though, is that, I would like YouTube to pay our bills someday. But if this is what people are doing to get clicks, I'm out. There's no fucking way. I'm not doing this. Just so you know, this is as far as I can go. I'm willing to get canceled and say some wild shit, but I'm not getting stabbed in the face. So I just hope you're okay with that.
Let me play devil's advocate here. Maybe because I haven't been canceled enough. But go back something like 600 years. This is what we did, right? Vikings came to America, and the first thing they did, they couldn't communicate with the locals, so they started leaving gifts, and then the locals would leave their own gifts in exchange, and they somehow established a relationship that way. So that guy came to the beach, and he left them a coconut and something else, right? A can of Diet Coke, I think. So he was trying to establish some sort of trade, some sort of relationship, maybe envisioning himself being the next Magellan or Columbus or something
who we celebrate,
like that.
By the way. We love those guys,
Yeah. We love them for the period that we were in. Yeah. Now, today we understand that they brought diseases that wiped out 98% of the local population. So that is probably Indian law doesn't quite allow him to do that anymore. But in general, he's trying to go in the footsteps of the greats of the past.
Yeah, I wrote here, it's the white man's pull towards colonialism is kind of the thing. Like you can't, and you can't celebrate, Magellan and Columbus without going, well, this guy's just kind of, he's in the same vein. There's a through line. I get he's doing it for clicks, but the ends are kind of the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah. And then you mentioned that you can't pronounce the guy's name. If I remember correctly, it's Mikhailo Polyakov, which is a Ukrainian name.
I was going to ask you to pronounce it, but I didn't want that felt.
Yeah, that part I don't understand. Like it's almost like the simulation is trolling me with this story. But yeah, somehow of all the stories about Ukraine, our story is about a Ukrainian, I'm guessing Ukrainian-born guy from Arizona going to the Indian Ocean to work with the tribesmen there, and ending up locked up in Indian prison, I guess.
Which beats the alternative, which was getting stabbed in the face by a stick until he's dead.
How do you know? Maybe you would have established trade.
Can you imagine they have some cures of some shit over there? We just don't know because no one's brave enough except for this YouTuber to go give it a shot. Well, the missionary gave it a shot too.
But look, Papua New Guinea, I think, was only contacted, or basically the inland part of it was only contacted in 1976. Yeah. So you don't actually have to go 600 years back. We still have parts of the world where first contact between Western people and most of the local population occurred less than 50 years ago. Right? And Papua New Guinea is a pretty big country.
I get why they're doing it. I'm sure this tribe wants to be left alone. But if you show them internet porn, I think maybe they'll go, all right, I'm in. Like I respect both sides of the story. The other thing I like too is that like they just like, how many people do they have to kill before we get the message? I think they just want to be left alone.
I'm not even sure that is true. I'll keep playing devil's advocate here. Nobody can ask them if they want to be left alone because we don't speak the fucking language. All we know is a guy they don't know shows up, and unless he can somehow dispel the notion that he's a hostile, they kill him. Right? But maybe coconut and Diet Coke is the way, and we just don't know it.
I feel like I'm playing my own devil's advocate because I watched this documentary. It's called Boys from Baraka, and they were sending war refugees over to the United States, and in some cases they were sent to like Denver. And these people have never felt cold before. Like imagine, like there was they hadn't seen snow, no showers, electricity. Like I love those things. So if the ends are these guys having going to a 5-star hotel, so you're living outside your entire life, and then you go to a 5-star hotel. Which one's better? The hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, even scaling it back down to the coconut, can you imagine what it's like to try a Coke for the first time in your life? Having never tried anything artificial?
I think about that all the time. Like everyone's like, who's the first guy to try lobster? That's crazy. Imagine the first guy to have a watermelon or an orange. Can you imagine like going from fucking root vegetables without butter or salt to eating fruit? That must have blown their fucking mind, let alone a Coke. Oh my God, that's got to be incredible.
Well, you have to consider that at least with fruit, it was gradual, right? There was no magical orange appearing in front of people, right? It was first really tiny, really shriveled things that weren't that tasty. Yeah. And over time, we selected the ones that are
cultivated
good.
it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I don't think that there's a natural selection process for the evolution of Coke. Unless you take into account the fact, by the way, I'm kind of going into Wikipedia mode here, the fact that before we had Coca-Cola, we actually had Coca wine made by the same guy that was advertised by the Pope himself. Oh, right. It was wine with cocaine in it, essentially.
I was going to say, as long as the cocaine was still there.
Right. And then at some point, I guess it didn't sell well enough, and so the inventor, I think John Pemberton's the name, if I remember correctly, right? He came up with this other idea of why don't we just mix it with some cola nut that has caffeine in it and give it caramel coloring and create Coca-Cola.
That's genius. I heard too that sales weren't very good the first year. That's you got to stick to it, man, because now it's on it's on every continent. I also heard that Sprite used to have lithium in it. Did you hear that? Like drinking soda back in the olden days. That was a good time.
Lithium is, I guess it serves the opposite purpose, but it's
right.
interesting.
Well, on a menu, you kind of want both, right? You can't force everybody to be bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, well, lithium specifically doesn't just stop you from bouncing off the walls, right? You kind of give it to people who are psychotic, schizophrenic, things like that. So
the world was a better place. Yes, yeah. Psychotics were self-medicating with Sprite. Oh, this is a good transition. Speaking of cocaine, Wall Street. All right, so this The Wall Street career path can be brutal, but young people are embracing it. That's sort of a misleading headline, because in the article they go on to say that young people are having reservations about getting into Wall Street. They're doing it anyway because of the money, but
Yep.
So Business Insider surveyed students about their business tracks, expectations, and motivations. Most students said they plan to start their financial careers through traditional investment banking paths. The students expressed complicated feelings about their chosen career path. They're skeptical about Wall Street's proclivity to burnout, and they want to be protected from this burnout. Here's my pushback on this. The entry-level salary for a Wall Street intern, or where the fuck they are when they first come, $110,000 with bonuses, annual bonuses of 40 to 60 grand. The average wage in the United States is $66,000. It's an awful lot to ask of Wall Street to not only pay you these crazy fucking amounts of money and also care about your mental health. That's what the cocaine is for, isn't it?
Well, I think it's beyond mental health, right? It just feels like they would like to mail it in and not really work, but still get that kind of money.
It kind of sounds like that, yes. Right. It's like, I want to play in the NFL, but I don't want any concussions. Well, you can't. That's sort of baked into the whole fucking idea, isn't it? Jesus. This generation can't put up with anything. Come on.
Well, it's one thing to not want concussions. It sounds like they don't want practice every day.
Touche. It's enough's enough. It's fucking Wall Street. Oh my God. Yes, they want to be paid $200,000 right out of college. With what? With what? Not working the hours, not dealing with the stress. Come on, man.
Yep. So I don't know what to add here. It sounds like we have a bit of a clash between the culture of Gordon Gekko and the culture of just leave me alone. I want to smoke pot on the sofa.
It's strange, though, because the Gordon Gekko thing used to be the thing that attracted people to Wall Street. Like, holy shit, look at this power. You can be an asshole. You're surrounded by money and women and drugs, and that's fucking great. And now they're like, I wanna pussify Wall Street. Can we not? Can we can't pussify? Just stop pussifying everything. Can we have some things?
Well, to their defense, I don't think they want to pussify all of Wall Street. They just want a better deal for themselves. They think everybody else can still work 80-hour weeks and be on cocaine all the time, right? But as long as their boss doesn't email them after 5 p.m., they'll be happy.
Oh, Lord of sweet Jesus. See, okay, let's devil's advocate this story. Wall Street has always been a beautiful way to get into Washington, though. There seems to be a sort of a revolving door. It's a great way to become a politician. It's a great way to purchase a politician. So maybe if we have a kinder, gentler Wall Street, and these kids care about burning out and mental health, then maybe, ergo, Washington will eventually adopt those same values. Think there's any hope here?
Maybe, but I think the hope kind of will lead to a different outcome than the one you described. If we have a kinder and gentler Wall Street, then maybe we'll get to the world where basically that entire financial intermediary class is back to being 5% of the GDP and not 20, right? Which is what it used to be in the 50s. Yeah. So we'll probably get to the point where there's just less money to go around because, well, it's not like that class creates anything. It's mostly just an intermediary that cuts a coupon on everything that passes through it. That's true. So we'll probably, if that happens, if that were possible, if you could wave a magic wand and ban cocaine or replace it with lithium or something, then...
I was concerned that we were going straight.
No. We never go straight. There's always a bit of looping around. Just
thank you.
So yeah, maybe we'll just get to the point where it's Silicon Valley buying Washington right now because that's where the money is.
Yeah, but Silicon Valley's gone the other way too. Zuckerberg's in the pockets of Trump and Musk. So yeah, things are so fucking unpredictable.
Well, as somebody who lived in Silicon Valley for 10 years, I can tell you there's quite a bit of cocaine going around as well. Now there's more ketamine, but yeah, cocaine is still there.
I am just, what does ketamine do? This is probably a stupid question, but what do you know?
It's basically like hitting all your synapses with a sledgehammer and resetting everything.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't know. Oh, okay. Shit. I thought it was so it's not a downer. Is it in like the MDMA world?
I think it's closer to hallucinogens, but it's not even that quite. But yeah, I think people take it for the same reason they would take LSD or psilocybin. But it works in a slightly different way. Again, I'm kind of not an expert. I know more about psilocybin and stuff like that. But
yeah, so do I. Well, that's why I'm asking, because there's only so many drugs I can be into as a 44-year-old guy. You know what I mean?
It seems like ketamine is in vogue specifically in Silicon Valley. Not quite sure why. It seems to have a lot more side effects that are negative than hallucinogens, which seem to be mostly benign in the long term.
Yes, I agree. And yeah. All right. Well, I'll look for a clinic. Is that what Matthew Perry died of? It was a ketamine clinic or something. Is that what that was?
I don't remember.
I think so. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares about Friends? Friends sucks, by the way. It's a terrible show. All right. Oh, this is something that just bothers me to my core. U.S. man hijacks plane in Belize and stabs people and then is fatally shot. Of course, a U.S. man has hijacked a small plane in Belize on Thursday, stabbing 2 passengers and a pilot. One of the stabbed passengers managed to shoot the hijacker, who was killed. The plane circled randomly for 2 hours while this whole drama unfolded. And then, so it wasn't a personal plane. There was 14 passengers. It was just a small plane. Yep. Evidently, so I read a couple articles. I don't know if it mentioned it in this one, but this guy, this American, he's a veteran, and he wanted the plane to land in Mexico. I think he wanted it to refuel. It sounds like maybe it was some sort of episode, but it's very vague as to why this happened in the first place. But thank God somebody on the plane had a gun. How often do you say, thank God one of the other passengers was able to smuggle a gun onto a small plane?
Now, I love one of the comments when they were describing the stabbing attack was from other passengers. I have no idea how he managed to get a knife on the plane. But then he was shot by somebody who got a gun on the plane. Yeah.
What's happening?
And nobody's concerned about that particular thing. Right? It's just, how did he get a knife in there? That's the question.
Who's working the TSA counter at this fucking place? Obviously, they didn't bother to take anyone's shoes off.
Yeah, I think this is Belize. As long as you give an extra gun as a gift to the guy checking, you can carry yours.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, thank God that's the policy, because otherwise all 14 of these people would have been dead. So the thing that bothers me about this in general is I hate flying, and I just don't like it. I don't like heights. I know we're not going to crash, but here's the thing, man. There's something about airports and planes that drive people absolutely insane. And I don't know if it's because like the airport is a lawless land. You can go to a bar at 7 a.m. There's people sleeping on the floor. There's delays. There's, cancellations. A bag of chips costs $14. A bottle of water is $21. It's total pandemonium. And that's before you get into a giant tube at 30,000 feet in the air going 600 miles an hour. The whole thing is weird, but if you look at these old pictures, people used to dress up, they used to serve real food. How did it go from a very classy experience to a bus in the sky?
Well, I think the prices were pushed down. That's the primary transition. Because if you look at the price of air travel back in those days, when you actually got a home-cooked meal served to you from a pot, right? You had 4 people sitting in front of an actual table with a kitchen cloth on it. Like, that costs more than first class costs today if you translate it dollar for dollar. And so when we decided we want to make it cheaper, well, the only way to make it cheaper was to actually shove 600 people into a plane that used to carry 40. And now you have everything that you described.
Man, I'm glad you looked into this, because it makes sense, but it's not like flying is cheap. Ryanair, have you been to Ryanair? And that is exactly like riding a public bus in the sky. There's no
they tried to introduce the possibility of standing spots where you don't even have a seat. You just stand in the airplane the entire way. I think they were ruled down basically, and they weren't allowed to do that, but certainly
it's coming.
Yeah, probably.
Well, because what's the point of sitting down in a seatbelt? Ostensibly it's to survive a crash. You're not surviving a crash. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. It's not to survive a crash either. So you've had instances actually fairly recently of turbulence that killed the only guy who wasn't strapped in, right? Because if you have sufficient turbulence and the airplane basically drops, let's say 30 meters, just bump, then whoever is not strapped in is going with his head towards the ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's basically what that seatbelt does. It doesn't really do that much else. Though I have to admit, the guys in first class, they have nicer seatbelts. It's like a 5-point strap-in, kind of like in a Ferrari.
It's because they care about it.
Yeah. But still, it's there to protect you from the minor things, the turbulence, the actual emergency landing where everybody survives, but there's a big bump and you kind of bounce a few times off the water, things like that.
I'm telling you, they might have lost the battle here with standing. They're not losing the war. We are going to be standing on planes. Eventually, they're just going to dangle us. There's going to be ropes that you hold on to. And they'll just fly really low so we don't freeze.
I think the much more efficient way is probably the Japanese pods, right? If you've ever been in a Japanese airport, they have these pods where you can just slide in and sleep. You don't get a full room to sleep in. You basically just have one cocoon, right? And there's a guy right above you and a guy right below you. So I think stacking people horizontally is probably more efficient than stacking them vertically.
I totally agree. And I can't sleep sitting up, and I hate flying. So I'm just terrified the entire time sitting up, and I don't want to drink too much because then I have to piss, and getting up and pissing in a plane is a fucking nightmare. So yes, if I could just lay down and go to sleep, oh my God. The Japanese, again, living in the year 50,000, they're just so far ahead of us.
Well, so I have to tell you, as somebody who's lived in Japan for about a year, if you go on the subway in Japan, then they do all stand, right? And you
Mhm.
have actual people pushing people in because otherwise they won't fit, right? You have
Yep,
this in every crowded station.
I like that.
But if you look around, and since I'm way taller than basically everybody in Japan, I can look
Mhm.
around and see everybody. About half of the people, as they're standing in the subway, they're asleep.
How I need to learn that technique. They're so zen. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want
Well, I
to
mean, they are
start that.
propped up from each side, so it's not that they're gonna
Oh,
fall
so they're
down. There is
suspended
nowhere
like
to
in
fall.
Jello. They're like a piece of fruit in Jello. All right. Well, that makes sense
Yeah.
to me. I can do
Oh,
that.
I guess it's more like a pickle in a jar, right?
Okay. And they're so nice. Nobody's pickpocketing, right? They're just having a little public nap. Push
Yeah,
up
there
against
is there is
300
no
of your
crime in Japan except drunk foreigners fighting or something. That's basically it.
Leave it to us to ruin everything. We're stabbing people in the sky in Belize. We're fighting in Japan. We're visiting islands where they're stabbing us in the face. Like, what is wrong with us? Okay.
Everything.
Everything is wrong with us. Speaking of, okay. Here's an article about how we might not be alone in the universe, which I think is probably an obvious point given how big the universe is. But now we seem to have narrowed in on something. So the discovery was made on a massive exoplanet, I don't know what that means, known as K12-18b. It's much larger than Earth, but smaller than Neptune. Astronomers hope to make additional observations with the James Webb Space Telescope to conclusively prove their findings. The findings serve as the strongest evidence yet that life may exist anywhere else besides Earth. Okay, I have a few thoughts on this. They're going to lead into the next story. But before we get into those, do you think it's weird that everyone always assumes that aliens are smarter than us? It's possible that they're dumber than us, isn't it?
Well, it is quite possible that there are some that are smarter, some that are dumber. I think the weird assumption that people make is that they are kind of similar to us, right? Maybe a little bit smarter or a little bit dumber. Whereas the reality is, right, if they are smarter than us, it's probably at a level where we can't even talk to them. They basically will view us as ants.
Yeah.
Right? It's very unlikely that they are smarter, but enough to communicate in human language or to have a translator that can actually work through it. Now, in this particular story, if I don't know if you want to jump into it right yet, but
I do.
the evidence they saw is that they could detect the presence of a gas that on Earth is produced by basically plankton's farting, right? But it could be produced using a different process there, right?
Uh-huh.
So there is no evidence of life here. There is evidence of one of the byproducts of something that is created using living organisms here. There, it could be a chemical process producing it.
Right. Yes. Right. So it's a lot of speculation, but you know what's fucking fascinating is that they can see. So this is a quote: hints of molecules on a planet 120 light years away. That is fucking fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And so this is what they say: astronomers can determine the chemical composition of the atmospheres of faraway planets by studying the light from its planet star as the planet passes in front of them, as seen here through Earth. Most people on the internet don't know the difference between there, and there. And we have, you know what I mean? Like, how the fuck are we the same species? This is why when people get into this like anti-vax stuff, this is what scientists are doing. This is to the level they understand shit. And then fucking dum-dums like us go on the internet, read a couple things, go, I don't like it. It's not real. You know, I'm not getting the measles vaccine because the guy on QAnon said it's bad. Fucking astronomers are looking at molecules 120 light years away. Come on, man.
Yeah, now granted, there's kind of a bell curve in the scientist community as well. So not everybody is at that level. Some of them just make shit up, and that makes it into publication as well.
Sure.
With vaccines specifically, just yesterday I was reading up on Wakefield. Granted, he's the father of anti-vax in the West, right? Yeah. But here's how you can falsify a study even though you are a scientist. So it happens. But yeah, this story itself is interesting. I'm not that excited about this particular planet. Because 100 and something light years away means that with our travel speeds, it takes us 5,000 years, I guess, to get there, roughly, on a normal rocket. So it's not like we can actually send anybody there. We don't have that kind of preservation tech. And then the second problem is once you get there, even if it has water, even if it has land, even if the atmosphere is great, that planet is 8 point something times larger than Earth.
Yep.
So I don't think you can walk on that, right?
No.
You're basically going to be a lump into the ground and you won't be able to get up.
Exactly. And so this is the other thing too, is I think we are so far away from like accessible space travel. I read this book called Evolving Ourselves. This is probably like 15 years old at this point. It's a lot of pseudoscience, but they did prove. So this guy's point is with space travel, an organic being probably isn't going to fucking hack it. But they've done experiments where they've taught a rat a maze. They've put his goo on a silicone thing and put on another rat's brain, and that rat knew the maze. So they're like, oh, interesting. We can start to transfer memories. I think we're going to have to become cyborg-like creatures because you can't bring something that needs air, that needs to piss, that needs to shit, that needs to eat, and send them 120 light years in a spaceship. I just don't think it's going to work. We're going to have to get our brains in a hard drive, and we got to be robot-usses.
I mean, that's one approach. The other one is maybe we can still bend the laws of physics or discover a new type of physics in which we don't have the speed of light as the upper bound of how fast you can travel.
Yeah.
And then everything works. I think the US government just yesterday accidentally hinted that we already know how to do that stuff, but we'll see. I'm not quite sure that we know it yet.
Yeah.
But it might be the only way that space travel is possible to a significant extent, right? We can get to Mars, but why the fuck do we want to get to Mars?
That is something I've talked about all the time because I've asked people, I was like, would you want to go to Mars? And they say yes. I'm like, why? It's just going to be dark. You're going to be in a fucking thing. Like down here on Earth is all the beer, all the booze, all the women, all the sports. Like if I could imagine a planet that would make me happy, it's all the shit I have here, just without the other, like the violence and, the fucking rape and disease, So why don't we just cure that? Like Earth is pretty fucking perfect if you take away all the crazy bullshit. Why don't we work on that?
But look, even on Earth, you still have people trying to go and contact previously uncontacted tribes in the Indian Ocean, right?
Yeah.
So probably the same impulse is what makes people want to go to Mars. Some combination of I want to explore the unexplored and I just want people to know about me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's 50-50 or 80-20 or whatever, but people have these impulses. So you're going to find volunteers that want to go to Mars. The question is, okay, we've established a Mars colony. Now what?
Right. Exactly.
It's only useful in the case of, okay, everybody on Earth is wiped out, but Earth is still useful and you can repopulate it, right? So it's almost like a small backup program for fixing the Earth after a full reset.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't quite understand what the value is. You have some value in being able to fly to various asteroids and mine them, just because maybe they have stuff that is kind of expensive here.
We need shit that goes in cell phones. Yeah, hopefully they have some of them cell phone things.
I mean, maybe we will tariff them less than China, and then it will work.
Space tariffs? It's coming. I don't know if it's our lifetime, but it's coming. This is the thing I say about humans all the time, which is big dumb animals. Bees, for example. Some bees stay back and work on the hive. Some bees go out and explore to find, in these explorer bees are the people that are out there trying to live on Mars. So I guess it takes all kinds of bees. Here's the other thing too is while I was nodding while you were trying to explain that we probably need some sort of like bend the law of physics thing. I don't understand anything about this, but it seems conceptually right. I'm somewhere between, I understand the difference between your and there and there. But I also recognize that I'm too dumb to understand this. So I just default to the experts. I default to the experts. You know who isn't defaulting to the experts? Texas.
Careful there.
Oh, fuck that. No,
I'm in Texas as we speak. Careful there.
I'm going to go hard on Texas right now because I looked up some numbers. All right. So the CDC scraps plans to help Texas schools curb measles over layoffs, employees says. So basically, the CDC had planned to offer help curbing measles in Texas schools after some staff working on the agency's response to the year's virus were warned that they could face layoffs. So I think the point here is that there's a measles problem in Texas because people are freaked out about the MMR vaccine. Now, what people are trying to do is rein this in, stop the spread of measles, and blah blah blah. To me, this is a little bit like I don't think we should save stranded mountain climbers because you climb the mountain knowing that death was possible. That's part of the thrill. Now that it's here, deal with it. And that's, to me, like you knew that there were consequences to not getting the MMR vaccine. One of them being, what are the M's? Measles. Deal with it.
Okay. I'm going to have to break this position for you because I think that's wildly incorrect. Okay. Right? The problem with these measles outbreaks is that it's not only people who chose not to get vaccinated getting sick.
Yes.
Right. The primary problem is that the first time you get the measles vaccine is around 18 months. Right. And the idea is that if everybody after 18 months is vaccinated, then you don't have to worry about kids younger than 18 months getting it. But if now some percentage of the people who are above 18 months, they're unvaccinated, they can spread it to younger children who haven't gotten the vaccine yet because they haven't reached that point in the schedule. That's one. And then there's also a small percentage of people who are actually medically exempt from that vaccine because they're allergic to something or because they're immunocompromised. They're also relying on our herd immunity, meaning vaccination rates above 99%, and then they will never get it. But once you actually get this kind of local outbreak, then typically a large percentage of the people who are actually getting sick and ending up in hospitals are the ones who didn't choose not to get vaccinated. They are either too young or immunocompromised. So you do have to worry and try to fix an outbreak when it happens. And certainly, if I read the same article as you, then some of the ways in which measles has been transferred is because the air filters in the hospital were not actually unwrapped and the plastic is still on them. So everybody thinks they are filtering stuff when in reality, they forgot to unpackage it, right? Yeah. I don't know that it takes experts flying in from Washington, D.C. to remove the wrapper on an air filter. Yeah. Maybe it's correct that that department has been cut and Texas has to figure it out by itself, right?
Can I suggest why Texas hospitals might not be unwrapping the filter? 29th in education, according to U.S. News & World Report. 41st in Wallet Hub's least to most educated state. 49th in terms of high school diploma holders. Texas, I need you to get your shit together. Okay? Default to the expert. Dude, there's only one state that has less high school diplomas than fucking Texas. All right? And we're surprised that this is the state can't unwrap filters and who doesn't believe in science. There needs to be social pressure within Texas to go, okay, I know that you're fucking some either far right or far left wing hippie, but you not getting the measles vaccine is hurting the tribe, the herd. We have to stop this. And part of that is believing in science. And 6th in the bullying rate, 8th in high school dropout rate. These numbers are awful. So I just think, obviously it's proving my point. Like, come on, man. This population read something on the internet and decided they were smarter than astrophysicists. That's the problem.
Well, maybe some percentage did, and again, some percentage were just not eligible for the vaccine yet. I don't know where Texas stands in vaccination rates. Typically, Texas in all of these healthcare-related or education-related parameters was basically in the middle, like 26th, 27th in everything. You just said they're 29th in education in general. Number of dropouts might just be related to the number of recent immigrants, right? So I don't know. I
was hoping you wouldn't bring that up because it doesn't sound as good for my argument. So let's just give me the hard numbers.
Yeah. If you want me to only say things that are good for your argument, then start by saying the opposite of what you think, and then I will bolster your real argument, because I will typically just be against anything. That's my nature.
I've noticed.
But I don't know what state is the worst in vaccinations. Traditionally, it was actually Marin County in California. That was always the worst.
See?
Before COVID happened, and then the entire thing flipped, and now right-wingers are against the vaccine more. But it used to be left-wing hippies for the most part.
This is one of those things that's hard to pin down. Like conservatives, a big part of their thing used to be like national parks and conserving the land, and now they drill, baby, drill. So the whole thing is constantly like the Republicans were the party of Lincoln, and now they love Confederate statues. So it's very hard to pin down labels, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, but with anti-vaxxing specifically, like there's obviously some reasons to be concerned about some vaccines, but if you're always against all of them, I suspect none of these reasons are what drives you.
Right. Yeah, it's strange times. I get, again, this is the crowd that can't tell the difference between there, and your, but they think they can pass a high school chemistry exam because obviously they know a lot about virology, I don't know.
Let me articulate a very conservative position here, right? I don't hold many of them, but this will be one of them that I do hold, right? My conservative position is that I am an expert in maybe 2 or 3 things in this world. And on everything else, I should just follow whatever is the most mainstream position right now, right? And so everybody should decide for themselves, what are you the expert? And that's where you innovate. That's where you hold your opinion. And even if the experts disagree, you will believe in what you believe because maybe you turn out to be the next Einstein, right?
Yep.
But you can't be the next Einstein in everything. Nobody is. Einstein himself was kind of shitty in everything except physics, right?
Yeah.
Look at his personal life. So I don't know. I don't understand people who innovate with relationships, for example, because how can you be an expert in relationships when you're young? Like this is one of your first ones. You don't have a PhD in. Like, on what basis do you think that you can make better decisions than your parents did? Right. So I never understood that, and I end up being very conservative in my personal life. Right. And so I think the same thing applies to most things, like vaccinations. Yes, when COVID happened, I tried to form my own opinion. I couldn't do it in the US because all the data here was too noisy. And so I just read statistics from Israel and from other places that had the vaccine first. Right. And the data was pretty self-evident once you looked at it. I think most people who form strong opinion in the US never looked at that. They just formed a strong opinion based on forming a strong opinion and nothing else.
Right. So my strong opinion, and look, the scientific community with COVID, you know, I had a guy on 2 weeks ago that was involved in the making of the vaccine and who invented the rotavirus vaccine, admitted mistakes in the beginning, but that's what science is. Science is coming up with an idea, testing it, seeing if you're right or wrong, and going. They were trying to do it so fast. It was Operation Warp Speed, right? Isn't that what they were trying very hard to get this thing right? And you break some plates, you break some eggs, you know, but eventually they kind of sort of fucking got it. And I just don't know why we hold science to this unreasonable level. That's not what the thing is. They'll get there, but in the beginning, it's broken shit.
Well, again, specifically with this thing, right? So when you had you had the 2 novel vaccines, right? The mRNA ones, but you also had the traditional vaccine, right? The Johnson & Johnson one. So I could somewhat sort of understand people who said, I'll take the vaccine that is made in the same way we've made vaccines for the previous 20 years, and not the one that uses the new technology we invented yesterday, because maybe 5 years from now, we'll figure out that this new technology has some side effects. And that was a sort of reasonable argument. Like, I would have the counter argument with, why do you take something with 70% efficacy when something with 95% efficacy exists? But all right, I get that one. But going and then claiming that the vaccine is just causing all sorts of injuries, it all accumulates in your ovaries or whatever, none of that had any basis. The few studies that tried to claim that were clearly falsified. Right. And so, it seems like people pick a position first. This probably connects us to last week's discussion, right? People pick a position first based on what feels right, and then they select whatever data looks like it matches this position without even having the basic skill set of reading data.
Exactly. And then to muddy the water further, you have people saying that Bill Gates was putting chips in you to control whatever the blah, 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 that they were sterilizing certain undesirable populations. So then it gets like, holy shit. Wow. Fascinating. Humans are fascinating.
Let's summarize this by saying MMR vaccines are good.
I have mine. I take one every day, as a matter of fact. I am not getting the fucking measles.
I mean, again, you can be against some vaccines, like I still don't understand the hepatitis vaccines for newborns. But MMR, clearly good.
Clearly good. Yeah, let's stop on that. And one more thing too. As a military brat, you know, I lived all around the world. They shoot us up with everything. They shoot soldiers up with even more, like vaccines. And that's, you know, typically the military, pretty right wing. And I don't see, you know, prior to it being politicized with COVID, no one was ever like, I don't want the yellow fever vaccine. I'll take my chances. No, you just fucking shut up. You trusted science and got your yellow fever vaccine, you know? Anyway, I really like this version of the show. I really do. How do you feel about it? I like our... I don't really feel like
Let's conclude first. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Maybe it will still blow up. How do you know?
Listen, it's the first episode. This time next year, we're going to be fucking so famous. It's going to be unbelievable. People want to hear our opinions on vaccines and people stabbing people in planes. I'm telling you.
As long as people don't stab people with the vaccine. Right.
I have the stabbing vaccine, so it doesn't matter. Because I believe in science. All right, hey, we'll be back. Back Monday. Have a lovely weekend. Oh, it's Easter. Oh, that's exciting. Goodbye, America.